I want to preach today about the cross. Yes, the cross. A delightful topic. Well, it should be. But the cross, for us, is nothing without Christ. And so when we want to think about the cross, or when we encounter the cross in our life, where do we look first? We look at Jesus on the cross. And we look today with the church on these scriptures. You see in the gospel that Jesus is on his way ultimately to Jerusalem, but along the way he's taking his time so he can teach his disciples some things. Along the way too, we're on a journey as well, and all of us also will go to a deathbed at some point down the road. But along the way, Jesus asks us these same questions that are asked in the gospel. Who do people say that Jesus is today? A lot of people put him on the same level as Buddha or Muhammad, these other figures, Gandhi. And then Jesus might ask us personally, but who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? Before Jesus, we cannot be indifferent or have an attitude of apathy. Before him, we have to make a decision. Jesus puts this to his apostles, and Peter, you gotta love Peter. His impulsiveness gets it right every once in a while. He says, "You are the Christ." He'd been interiorly sensing from Jesus' teaching something more than just a mere man. If we walked with Jesus at that time in the first century, we'd see just a man, but our faith would then pierce through that flesh and know there's divinity behind that flesh. You and I today, in the Eucharist, some people may see just a mere host, but you and I with faith in our hearts can see through that and see Jesus present, both man and God, with us and for us. They're helping us, suffering in us, but helping us redeem that suffering. So he warns them right after Peter does this that don't tell anyone yet. Don't tell anyone. Why does he do that? Because there's more to tell them. And then he starts to tell them. He teaches them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly, be rejected by the elders. There will be suffering involved with my kingdom. Though I am the Messiah, the Christ, the Anointed One, suffering will be how I'm on my way to my throne. And whoever wishes to come after me must take up his cross and follow me. He makes it very emphatic, very dramatic. Get behind me, Satan, when Peter rebukes him for thinking such a way about his own kingdom. Jesus says, well, by suffering, this is my very mode. I will redeem you through that. To say that I should not suffer or will not suffer is to say I'm not going to save you. Jesus knows all of these things, and so he corrects Peter. You're thinking not as God does, but as human beings do. You and I have this too, right? When we meet with our crosses, we get kind of surprised by them. And we're like, well, this isn't what I had in mind. But Jesus says, well, I'm allowing this in your life because it will help save your soul. Because our souls are filled with gunk half the time. Jesus wants to save us through these things. There are two kinds of crosses. The first cross is the active cross. This is one that is usually the same as what we've chosen in our state in life. As a Catholic, part of the cross sometimes can be getting up and getting to Mass. It can feel like a bit of a cross. But fidelity, justice, courage move us forward. Yes, I am a person who worships God on Sunday morning. I don't just, who knows what people do on Sunday mornings? Just sleeping, I guess. But for the soul's health and strength, we need to worship our Lord. So also, active crosses can be things that are like, okay, my spouse, my husband or wife, they are a little bit of a cross at times, but I've made my choice. I've made my choice. If we're ever tempted to look outside of our vows, of our promises, we can say in the heart of hearts, I've made my choice before God. I am who I am. I am someone who is taken. And I have made my choice to this spouse. And by this spouse, by this active cross, I will be saved. God will save me through these struggles, this journey this total life that he's given me, and to see it also as a holy cross, if it's united with Jesus. The other kind of cross is the passive cross. The passive cross is something that comes upon us that we didn't choose, nor is it resonant with our state in life. It can be something like horrible traffic for some reason. You're like, it's a passive cross. It's experienced as a cross. We don't really have a lot of traffic jams around here, I must say. But if we're in the cities, we'll maybe encounter a traffic jam and we're like, oh, that's the cross. Then you can offer it in that moment to Jesus. I offer this to you, Jesus. Help me to be patient. And this cross can be offered, though it's a passive one. Another example would be a sickness. We're heading into this season, this delightful season of sicknesses. That is a passive cross. Whatever sickness comes upon us, that's a passive cross. We then offer it to Jesus. Jesus, I give you this. He accepts our messes. He really does. Sometimes life is quite messy. And we bring it to Jesus again and again, and he loves that. He, in fact, gives us grace and blesses our life because that's going on. St. Josemaria has some great quotes, and one of them about this, he uses the word mortification in there, and that's another word for what I'm saying as a cross. So active mortification or passive mortification can be equivocated with the crosses. So I'm saying active crosses and passive crosses. This is what St. Josemaria says. The appropriate word you left unsaid, the joke you didn't tell, the cheerful smile for those who bother you, that silence when you are unjustly accused, your kind conversation with people you find boring, the daily effort to overlook one's irritating detail or another in those you live with. This, with perseverance, is indeed solid interior mortification. Don't say, that person bothers me. Think, that person sanctifies me. That person is making me holy. That's a hard one. Think of the person that gets under your skin the most right now. I'm sure all of us can think of somebody, like maybe a list. But think of them. And do not think that they're annoying. I wish they weren't even in my life. Think. That's not a Christian attitude, by the way. The Christian says, you don't bother me. You sanctify me. You're making me holy. You beautiful child of God, you're making me holy. That's humorous, and it, in fact, changes the meaning of how we experience that person. We experiencing them as a cross, as a passive cross, that then becomes the means of our holiness, of becoming holy. And holiness is not drab or boring. It's in fact an adventurous life. You and I know this in our hearts of hearts. This is a beautiful thing. When we meet with the cross, it is a gift. It's medicine for our soul that sometimes is sweet and sometimes it is bitter, but it is still nonetheless to be offered to Jesus. Our crosses, we can offer them most effectively in the Mass. A few weeks ago, I preached on the elevation of the host when the priest first consecrates the host and elevates it above the altar. Hear the words of Jesus also today. Who do you say that I am? And then we can think in our mind and heart, I believe that you are the Christ, and therefore I bring you all of my crosses. This altar represents also Christ, bringing all of our sufferings, sacrifices, everything we've done throughout the week, offering it on the altar to be transformed into the means of our salvation. Then in the Eucharist, in that moment of communion with Jesus, there is union with him, and that union will move us to become more of who we should be. And if we were who we're supposed to be, we would set the world on fire. This is a beautiful truth. To close with a quote from St. Louis de Montfort about the cross. You are having to bear a large, weighty cross. But what a great happiness for you. Have confidence. For if God, who is all goodness, continues to make you suffer, he will not test you more than you can bear. The cross is a sure sign that he loves you. I can assure you of this, that the greatest proof that we are loved by God is when we are despised by the world, and burdened with crosses. In other words, when we are made to endure the privation of things we could rightly claim, when our holiest wishes meet with opposition, when we are afflicted with distressing and hurtful insults, when we are subjected to persecution, to having our actions misinterpreted by good people and by those who are our best friends, and when we suffer illnesses which are particularly repugnant, etc. O good cross, come to us for God's greater glory. This is my frequent prayer, dictated by my heart in spite of my weakness and my many infidelities. After Jesus, our only love, I place my whole trust in the cross.